Welcome in, folks. We are 1 week away from the midterm. So midterm is on week 8. It's going to be on a Tuesday. So we are currently right here on week 7. It is Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. And the midterm is going to be exactly a week after that. So it's going to be next Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. Okay. It's going to be pretty chill this week. Today I'm planning on just introducing what the format of the midterm looks like. All right, so I'm just going to introduce the format. It's probably going to be like 30 minutes today. All right, the Thursday I'm going to go into possible solutions on how to solve all the practice problems. All right, so today is introducing the format. I'm going to let folks try it out themselves, and then come back on Thursday and I'll go over possible solutions. All right. So the practice midterm is right over here. You can check it out in the quizzes. All right, so click on quizzes. And then there's a couple options here. There's the actual midterm. This one isn't available until next week. This one right here is a practice. So this one is going to let you kind of view the format. Okay, let's talk about the format for this midterm. There's kind of two parts to this. One part is the Canvas, and another part is this notebook here. All right, so let's talk about these two things. Let me just download this notebook first, and then upload it to the Jupyter. Hold on, let me sign in real quick. I'm just gonna hide this. Let me just log in real quick. Okay. Loading up. Wait 1 second, folks. Still loading. Okay, I'm all loaded up. Cool, so the Canvas, right, go ahead and download this notebook and then upload it to the Jupyter server. I recommend creating a separate folder for this, just to be organized. So I'm gonna create a new folder here. I'll call it exams. And then inside of exams, I'm gonna go ahead and paste that practice midterm. So there it is, I just uploaded it. This is the practice midterm right here. The questions aren't really here. These are, you can think of this as a notebook to test your solution. Right? That's really what this notebook is. It doesn't contain any questions. Right? It just contains places where you can test your code. The actual questions are in this Canvas. So let me pull it side by side. Okay, let me zoom out a bit. Okay, hopefully folks can read this. So in the Canvas here, you can click it on take the quiz, and then you're gonna be there's gonna be like 6 questions. All right, there's 6 questions. Folks can read these instructions later. It's pretty much saying what we're going over. All right, so let's see. Code of conduct. It is an open book and open internet. So you can use any resources. The only restriction is, having AI do the work for you. And that's really the only restriction. Okay. So here's the questions, right? There's 6 of them, right? There's 6 questions. Most of them are asking to write a function, right? That's most of them. So I'm just going to scroll down real quick. Number 2 doesn't really ask us to write a function. I'll go over this in just a bit. Number 3 is asking to write a function. Number 4, write another function. 5, and then 6. All right, so there's only 6 questions. And then the very last one is going to ask you to upload the notebook. This is probably the most important one, because in order for me to grade your exams, you're going to need to upload the notebook. All right, so make sure you save some time for this. The exam is timed for 2 hours. So make sure you save like 5 or 10 minutes to upload your final notebook. Okay, so let's go over the general format of this. All right. So yeah, the left here, this is the notebook where you can kind of test your solutions. All right. So let's check out this first question here. All right. So question 1 is saying, hey, write a function that does something. All right. So let me go in the notebook and kind of set it up. So the notebook, make sure you load this extension in. It's going to allow you to get feedback. Okay. And scrolling down, right? Question 1 is blank here. Once again, this is like a playground cell, right? You're going to be putting in your solution in this cell and then testing it. So this is going to require a tag. So in the exam, you'll see something that says add the tag and then some code here. So you're going to have to paste this. All right, so copy and then make sure you add this into the comment in the notebook. All right, so add that. So I just pasted it. The reason why is because the feedback will rely on this code. Right, the feedback needs to know what to grade. So this code tells the grader what to grade. The reason why is because everyone will have a different generated exam. So every question is different for everybody. Okay, I hope that makes sense so far. So make sure you add the tag, and then let's go ahead and check out what this is asking for. So I'm gonna probably do like just a couple questions, and then end for the day, and let folks try out the other questions. The reason why is so folks can run into possible issues and see how to fix it. Because you're going to probably run into some issues during the exam, and it would be good practice to get exposed to them earlier on. Okay, I'll repeat that in just a bit. But anyways, I'm just going to go through a couple examples. So yeah, question 1 right here is saying, yeah, write a function called argreverser, and then it's going to take some amount of arguments and returns them in reverse order. So right away, you should be able to define a function, right? So in this cell, just go ahead and define a function. Right away, it's called argreverser. So define something called argreverser. Right? It's important to get this name right because the grader is going to rely on this exact naming convention. So argreverser, and then let me set up the syntax for the function. Right? This is a function that takes no input, no arguments. All right, so we do need to put in the arguments here. This question is asking for 3 arguments. All right, you can see them down here. All right, so the 3 arguments should be arg1, arg2, arg3. And every function at minimum should have a docstring. Right, the docstring will kind of explain what the function is supposed to do. It's really just repeating the question back. All right, so here the purpose is really just to return arguments in reverse order. All right, that's really what the purpose of this is. There are 3 arguments, 3 parameters. All right, there's arg1. This is anything. Right, it could be any variable type. Right, you can give it a string, you can give it a float, give it a list, a dictionary. Right, it could be anything. arg2 is also anything. arg3 is also anything. And then finally, the output of this function is to return a tuple. Right, for folks who are not sure what a tuple is, you can think of this as like it's kind of like a list, right? But not really. It's like a collection of things. So you can actually look at previous notebooks too, right? Once again, this is an open book, open internet type of exam. So to kind of expand on what a tuple is, well, first of all, you can Google it, or next, we've stumbled upon this type of thing before. All right, back in our functions lesson, lesson number 10, You've seen this. We just never really formalized it. So a tuple here, scrolling down to the return values. All right, so in the functions notebook, going to the return values, we were exposed to a function that returns multiple values. All right, like right here, this function, multiple values, it takes 0 arguments, meaning that you don't give any input. And it's really just here, all it's doing is returning 3 strings, right? It's returning, this is actually a tuple, right? You can tell because it's separated by commas. So this is kind of like it's like a list of 3 things, right? It's not really a list though, it's a tuple. Think of it as a data structure that holds some amount of things. Right? So it's kind of like a list. So yeah, we saw that here, right? If we were to define multiple values, right here, let me play this cell again. So let me play this cell. And if I were to invoke that function, multiple values, right, it's going to, the Jupyter Notebook will tell us what it evaluates to. Right, so you see how it evaluates to this thing, right? This thing has parentheses on the side. This is actually a tuple. You can verify it by looking at the type. Right, so the type of this is a tuple. Right, it's really you can think of it as like a list. Right, so you can access certain elements. Like if you were to access the 0th element, you can access it like a list. Right, multiple values in the 0th element will give you 1. Right, and the next element 2, and then 3. Oh, I meant 2. Right, the 3rd element doesn't exist. Because 3 technically represents the 4th element, right? And there's no 4th element in here, right? 0, 1, and 2. So this is going to give us an error, which makes sense. Okay, so hopefully people are seeing what tuples are. It's really just like a collection of things. Right? In this case, it's a collection of strings. So yeah, going back to the exam, the practice midterm. Right, that's hopefully people are seeing what the goal of this is. Right, it's really just to return these arguments over again, right, but in reverse order. So you could definitely do this in one line. Right, you can definitely just return a tuple. Right, you can just say return arg3, arg2, arg1. Right, you could do this in 2 lines as well if you want. Right, like you could store this into some variable. Right, you could say result is equal to this, and then return result. Right, result becomes a tuple. Right, you could put parentheses around this to make it a little more readable. But yeah, that's a tuple and then returning it. So let me go ahead and test it. So I'll press play. It's not really testing it, right? When I press play, all it did was load the function into the kernel. There is a testing cell down here. I don't recommend using this yet. Right. The reason why is because, first of all, it takes a long time. And then second of all, it's better programming practice to test it yourself first. Right? Instead of relying on others to test your code, you should be able to do it yourself. All right, so how would you verify if this function is working? Well, you just got to call it. Right? You just got to invoke the function. So I would recommend making another cell. All right, so I just pressed plus on the top left. This makes another cell. And then let me just comment this real quick. I'll call this a local testing. Right, local testing means we're testing our function without asking another person or something else to do it for us. So let's go ahead and test it, right? So we need to call the function, right, or invoke it. So I'll invoke arg reverser. And how do we use it? Well, we can put 3 parameters in there, right? It could literally be anything. So I'm going to hard code some values in here, like say hello world, and then I'll just say Bob, just a random name. Right, so hello world Bob. These 3 arguments will get sent up into the function, and hopefully the value of it is a tuple that's kind of reversed. So let me press play, and there we go. Right, I pressed play, and we see that the value of this is correct. Right, the value is the arguments in reverse order. So yeah, that's just some local testing. right? I would recommend printing this because I'm planning on testing it again with the different values. All right, so I'll test it again, arg reverser, and then once again, these three parameters can be anything. So it could literally be like numbers or list, right? You can say to, you can say like world, you can say like some list, right? So I'm just gonna hard code a little list of something and then another thing. Cool, so I'm calling the function, there's 3 arguments, right? We got an argument integer, we have an argument string, and we have another argument that's a list of strings. So these are 3 different types. And if we print it, right, we should get it in reverse order. So there you go, I just pressed play, and yeah, we see it in reverse order, right? We see the list, and then the string, and the number. All right, people cool with this so far? Okay. Cool, so now that we've done local testing, we're probably good for this question. So you can go ahead and do something called remote testing. All of these questions provide a cell that will send your code to some server, and that server will kind of give feedback. So let me run this cell right here. All right, I'll press play, and it's testing right now. It takes some time. It takes like 10 or 15 seconds. But basically what it's doing is it's uploading your cell, right? It's uploading this cell to a server, and then the server is kind of checking for things. And yeah, in this case, it looks like all tests were passed, but there might be some times when it doesn't pass, right? Like maybe you have a syntax error, or maybe the function isn't doing exactly what we want it to do. So yeah, I recommend trying out questions yourself to invoke errors and seeing if you can kind of troubleshoot them. All right, for example, let's say I were to accidentally get this function wrong, right? Like let's say I put arg3 here instead of arg2, right? This is a mistake, right? It's a purposeful mistake. Our local testing should catch it, right? See, I did catch it by studying its output, right? It didn't reverse the arguments because I put an arg3 here. So if you didn't catch it, maybe the feedback grader will, right? So let me ask it. Let me upload it and see what it says. Right, maybe it's going to catch it. Let's see. So testing, please wait. Okay, yeah, and then it says attention needed. All right, this is pretty much saying that the output isn't matching what it is, right? So it looks like the auto grader tested with some numbers, and then it looks like it didn't match up with what the output should have been. Okay. So yeah, hope folks kind of see what's going on, right? It's kind of hard to read what this is saying, but it's really just saying that the grader used your function and the output didn't exactly match what the answer should have been. So this is basically saying the function tested it with 1, 2, 3. All right, so let me just comment this out right here. It's pretty much saying that it used the function, put these numbers in, right, and then it got 3, 3, 1, but it expected 3, 2, 1. Right, that's really what this is saying. Okay, people cool with this so far? All right, cool. I do want to mention that the remote grader isn't exactly right all the time. Right, it's not like some magic AI that can tell whether or not you got it right. Right, this remote feedback is really just checking for certain things. And sometimes your solution might meet the criteria, but the feedback might not like it. So yeah, anyways, I'm just saying that there's a chance that your solution might work, but the robot isn't really accepting it. So I will be hand grading this, right? Meaning I'm actually going to be reading your code and checking if it's appropriate. Okay, any questions about that so far? Okay, cool. So we just did question 1, right? Once again, this is the question. If I do recommend pasting this into Canvas as well, just for like redundancy, right? Like in case you lose your work or in case your computer shuts down, I recommend copying all of this, right? Copying this whole cell, and then pasting it into the Canvas. All right, so I would paste it here. And oh, hold up, the font is a little off. Maybe let me put it in pre-formatted. Okay, never mind. It looks like I did it in the wrong order, so just go ahead and paste it, and then highlight it and put it into pre-formatted. All right, this is basically going to put it into a nicer font. So highlight everything and click on pre-format. It's just going to make the font fixed width, right? Meaning it's going to be easier to read. So I do recommend this because, in case your computer shuts down or the server crashes, Canvas will auto-save this. Right? So this is all auto-saved into the Canvas, meaning you have redundancy, and it's going to be hard to lose your work. All right, does that make sense? All right, question 1. Cool, yeah, so the format is, write some functionality in a cell, and then next, highly recommend testing locally. Right? Test locally, verify the results before remote feedback. Right? This cell takes a while. It takes a while. Okay, let's do one more, and then I'll let folks try out the rest. Okay, question 2 doesn't ask for a function. It's a special one, right? It's actually the only one that doesn't ask for a function, right? But all the others will. Yeah, all the others. So you'll try that out. Anyways, question number 2. Let me scroll down in the notebook. All right, it says, in a cell, use a turtle to draw a triangle. And that triangle needs to have 150 pixels. So yeah, here's a tag. All right, make sure you copy and paste this tag and add it to this string, to this comment here. All right, so I'll paste it there. All right, once again, that's there so the feedback knows what question to grade, right? Because everyone has a randomly generated exam. So this is important. Okay. So here we don't really need to write a function. It's just using the turtle. If anything, we do need some libraries to use a turtle, and we also need an extension to kind of make it display nicer. So you could look at a previous lesson and kind of copy and paste things. All right, this is open book, open notes, whatever. So I'm going to go to lesson number 2, and then copy and paste the first cell here. All right, so lesson number 2, we're loading an extension and then importing a library. So I'll explain that right now. Okay, so practice midterm. Question 2, right there, I pasted it. So if you're curious what this first one is doing, load extension, this is not really a classic Python line. This is really telling the Jupyter Notebook to make things look a little nicer. And then this second one, this is actual Python, right? It's actual classic Python. We're importing a library so we could use it. So yeah, you can go ahead and get that. So now we just need to use a turtle to draw a triangle. Right? We've done this so many different times. So I think folks already know what to do. Right? It's move, turn, move, turn, move, turn. Right? That's really it. So we do want to move 150 pixels, right? Because that's what the question is asking for. And then turn. Right? So how much do we turn? Right? If folks remember, I think it's 120 degrees. Right? 120. There's multiple solutions to this, by the way. You don't have to turn 120 degrees. Right? You could turn the other way as well, as long as you're making a triangle. So this, I'm going to test it real quick. So I'll press play, and it will draw it. Right, once again, it's not a function, so it is going to draw it here. So yeah, all you got to do is do this 3 times, right? All right, there we go. Right, draw this 3 times. So let me test it. Right? I don't need another cell to test it because this is not a function. So it looks like it drew a turtle, and maybe it's time to ask for feedback, right? Because we did local testing. Right? This is literally local testing right here. So let me press play here. It's going to take like 10, 15 seconds. Testing, all tests pass. Cool. So once you see that, most likely your solution is right. So maybe it's time to copy and paste this into the canvas. All right, so I'll copy and paste it here for redundancy. And then let me format it. So I'll highlight everything, click here, pre-format, and it's gonna fix up the font a bit. Okay, cool. And once again, Canvas auto saves this, so you won't really lose your work. Okay, yeah, hope that makes sense for folks. All right, let me invoke some errors in the robot. Sometimes folks might be using concepts that are outside of what we covered so far. And I think the feedback won't really like future concepts. So although I do appreciate creativity and infinite ways on doing things, people might represent this in another way. And maybe the feedback grader might not like it. Right, so another way you can do this is with a concept that we really haven't covered yet. Right, we could put this into a loop. Right, we could put it into a loop that does something 3 times. So once again, I haven't covered this. I'm just going to test it to see what the grader does. So one way you can say is for 3 different times, right, for I in range of 3. Right, I'll cover this in like a few more weeks. But this is pretty much saying loop this 3 times. Right, that's really what it's saying. And then let me press play. Right, see, it does the same thing. And let me just check the feedback grader just to see what it says. Okay, so let's see. Testing. Attention needed. Yeah. So, technically our solution was correct, right? It did draw a triangle using a loop, but the feedback grader is saying, oh, your solution didn't call the move 3 times. We technically did call it 3 times. We did because the for loop loops this statement 3 times, but this remote grader wasn't set up for future concepts. So it was hopefully that makes sense, right? It was set up for concepts we already covered, meaning that some folks might have nice solutions and it would work. In this case, I would probably give it full credit, even though the auto grader has a mistake. Right? Does that kind of make sense? I probably would give this full credit because I don't want to ruin any creativity. But the auto grader was really just asking for doing this 3 times, right? So I'll play that, and then this should pass the cases. So yeah, it's gonna pass. But anyways, my point is that the remote grader isn't perfect. Okay, let me move on. It should be all tests passed. Okay, so we just did 2 questions, right? The first question is a function, right? The recommended workflow for writing a function is to first define it, and then second, test it locally, right? Please test it locally before you move on to the remote grader, right? It's because you want to know how to use the function. Right? You don't want to ask for feedback blindly. So yeah, make sure you local test it and then send off to feedback. Right, and then question 2 right here, this one wasn't a function, but I still did local testing. Right? I ran this cell. I didn't need a separate cell because it's not a function. Right? I don't have to I don't have to write I don't have to use another cell to invoke something. Right, it's already invoked here because it's not inside of a function. So I local tested it and then asked for remote grading. Okay, so that's the first two questions. I would like folks to try out those next ones themselves. Number 3 is asking to write a function. All right, so make sure you understand the question before coding it. And yeah, but basically when you write docstring, it should maybe make sense. And if you're curious what this format here means, this just means when you're testing out the program, right? If you're invoking the function with these two arguments, right, it should evaluate to this, 0. Oh, actually, oh, I need to edit this. Let me see. Yeah, this should have said false, I think. Yeah, let me see. Okay, I'm gonna make a quick edit on this later. Basically, when you invoke the function, the value of it should be false, right? And the reason why is because this function is asking to see if the area is greater than 10, right? So if you have a triangle with a base 0 and a height 0, right, then that means its area is not greater than 10. So it should evaluate to false. All right, I'll fix this later after this recording. All right, so yeah, well, once again, this is like saying, you know, imagine if I had the solution here, right? So imagine if I had the solution here and I were to test it. Right, so if I were to paste this into here, and if I press play, it should say false, right? Not 0. I'm pretty sure, yeah, it should say false. Okay, and then going down to the next ones. Write a function. This is doing another triangle. So you can look this stuff up, right? Like if folks aren't sure what a hypotenuse is, or these arguments a and b, this is really saying, hey, if you have a right triangle with size a and size b, can you calculate the other side? Right, so you can look this stuff up, right? You can. It is open notes, so you could look up something like hypotenuse calculation. Alright, so I'll look up hypotenuse calculation. Oh, it looks like there's a calculator here. So you can kind of use this for verifying your test case. So let's see. I'm trying to find the formula. Okay, let me back out of here. It doesn't really show the formula. But if you've taken like a geometry class or something, basically the question is asking for this, right? If you give an A and give a B, right, how do you calculate C? Right? There's a formula for this. C is equal to the square root of the sum of these squares, right? A plus B. So basically you're going to have to find a way to integrate this into your function. Right, that's what the function is asking for. So, you know, imagine if you wrote this, right? So question 4, right? Imagine if we had the function here. If I were to locally test it, like if I were to say hypotenuse 5 and 6, right? This is like saying, hey, what is the size of the other side, right? If A is equal to 5 and B is equal to 6, right? What is C equal to? Right? So that's like saying here, right? If A is 5, B is 6, then C can be calculated in some way. All right, so if you were to evaluate this, this should evaluate to some number. Right? I don't know what number it is, but you can verify using a calculator. Right? I'm going to use an online calculator here. So I'm going to verify using this online. In this case, I'm going to supply it with A and B. So let me check these. And then I'll say A is 5 and then B is 6. Okay. So this says that C should be equal to 7.81. Right, so this means that when you're testing out the function, this should evaluate to 7.81. Right, and you can test with more numbers too, right? Like let's say, oh, we should probably print this too. Print this. Right, like let's say we tested another number, hypotenuse of maybe 12 and then 15, right? It doesn't really matter. All right, so this is like saying if A is equal to 15 and B is equal to 12 or vice versa, C should be equal to something. All right, so let's see what it should be equal to. Let's see, 12 and then 15 here. And yeah, it should evaluate to 19.21. So I'll put a comment here, should evaluate to, and I'll go ahead and print it as well. All right. Cool, so people kind of getting a sense on what this means. Right, this cell is a local testing. All right, I'm testing it locally. This is assuming you define the function up here, by the way. Okay, so yeah, you can look stuff up, right? You can look up formulas and stuff, but it's not appropriate to ask AI to do the work for you. Right, that's really the only restriction here. Like, because if you ask AI to do it for you, it's really going to ruin your problem solving. It's going to ruin your creativity as well. So yeah, highly recommend trying it out. Legit. Okay, let's see. So yeah, that's question 4. Question 5 is similar. It's going to be a little harder. Basically, you're going to have to read this later. But if you take a look at the example here, these are 2 function invocations. Basically, it's saying that if you were to evaluate this function, its value should return this list here. All right, so the reason why is because this function is asking you to swap 2 things. Right, once again, you can read this later. I and I plus 1. Right, it's saying that if you give it a list as the first argument and a position for the second argument, right, it wants you to switch the position starting at 0 and the one after 0. So this is saying swap the 0th element with the next one. Right, so it's asking to swap these 2, meaning that you'll end up with this, you'll return this resulting list. Right, and then another function invocation. Here, actually, let me paste this so folks know what's happening. So, assuming you wrote the function, I'm going to make a cell here that local testing. Right, local testing. Right, if we were to invoke the function with these 2 arguments, right, a list and an index, right, this should evaluate to this right here. Right, it should evaluate to this resulting list, and might as well print it as well. All right, so print it. So it should technically print 2, 1, 3, 4. All right, and then looking at the next test case, this is another function invocation. Right, it's saying if we call it with the same list, but the number 2 instead, this means to swap the 2th element with the next one. Right, so the 2th element is right over here, right? Because 0, 1, and 2. So it's saying to swap this element with the next one. Right, swap these 2 over here, and you should end up with this right here. Right, so this should evaluate to that. All right, 1, 2, 4, 3, and then go ahead and print it as well. And yeah, it should print that result. I'll let folks read this later, but that's pretty much what it's asking for. Okay. Cool. What else? Yeah, and then finally, question 6 is, it's saying write a function named name tag, and it takes 2 arguments and kind of just prints it back out. So this function isn't really going to return anything. It looks like it's just a function that prints a greeting, right? Meaning that if you were to invoke this function, right, it should print something for you. Right? It's not going to return anything. it should just print something. Right, the reason why a no doesn't return anything is because it doesn't say to return anything. Okay, cool. Let's see, so that's pretty much it. Make sure you save some time for the last question. This is uploading the Jupyter Notebook. So, when you're uploading it, you're gonna have to download it first, right? Like on the Jupyter server. I don't know how folks download it, but make sure you save it. So save the notebook and then go ahead and download it. Right, so I'll click download, and there you go. Right, I have 2 copies of it. One is the empty one, and this one is the full one, the complete one. So make sure you upload the complete one. I think you can click and drag. Can you? No, I can't click and drag. Never mind. So upload, and then practice midterm number 1. There it is. This is my complete one. And then and once you're ready, just go ahead and submit it. Okay, so I hope this gives folks an introduction to the midterm format. Right, this practice exam doesn't really cover all the concepts. Right, it's really just here to practice the format, so folks can get used to writing functions, testing locally, and then asking for feedback. Right, that's really what this is doing. It's not going to cover all of the topics though. So make sure you review all your previous notebooks, right? Like in the lessons, the exam will cover everything up until functions, right? So it's going to ask stuff on everything before, right? If you can use literals, operators, variables. There's going to be some questions on using lists and dictionaries. And so make sure you're able to navigate these data structures. Right, and then there's going to be probably a bit of HTML. You might want to get familiar with creating HTML strings and then returning it. Right, and then functions. Right, pretty much every question is asking you to write a function. So that's pretty much the midterm. Right, everything up to lesson number 10. I highly recommend going through all your previous notebooks. Right, like fully understanding everything, all of the lessons, fully understanding all of the labs. All right, we did labs all the way up to here. All right, we did like this many labs. So make sure you're cool with this. And then with the previous homeworks as well. Right, we have weekly projects. So I have it right here. All right, we did like 6 projects so far. So make sure you're fully familiar with these. Okay. So that's about it for today. I wanted folks to try out the rest of these questions. All right, if you're on the recording, please try it out yourself before seeing the solutions. The next recording will contain possible solutions. Right, and I highly recommend going through it yourself first. This way you can run into errors. Right, this way you can actually practice the problem-solving process. If you just kind of see the solution and copying it down, you're probably not going to get that much out of this course. Okay, any questions about this stuff so far? Okay, great, sounds good. Make sure you submit it when you're done. So on the bottom, there's a submit button. Right here, submit. And then, you should be done from there. This practice midterm has unlimited attempts, so you can try it over and over again. But as for the actual exam, there's only 1 attempt. So the actual midterm is, I'll make an announcement on it. But actual midterm is right here. Right, it's going to be next week at 6:30 p.m. And it's going to be a 2-hour time limit. So try not to be late. It is going to be asynchronous, by the way, meaning that most folks are probably going to be doing it at home, but I will be available on Zoom and in person. All right, so that should be it. Okay, if there's no questions, then have a great day, everybody, and give it a shot. See you all soon. Bye.